Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2010 Lexus HS250h. Up front is a 2.4 liter inline 4 as well as a hybrid system, and down below is an eCVT. Now I'm super excited to be driving this Lexus HS because I have always been fascinated by these vehicles. They only sold them for a short amount of time here in the United States. This was Lexus's first 4-cylinder product that they released, and they just look kind of odd, and yet I've never been able to film one until here today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. Last but not least, huge thank you to Napleton Subaru in Schaumburg for letting me borrow their Lexus HS here today. More on them towards the end of the video, but if you'd like to browse their inventory, you can do so down in the description below. But let's get back to that 2.4 liter inline 4 with the hybrid. Today in 2026, you hear a Lexus hybrid, you hear of a Toyota hybrid system, and you don't think anything of it. But back then, that just wasn't very common, and so it was a little bit experimental here with the HS, and I think that kind of led to its downfall, which we'll talk about towards the end. It's a fine engine, it's a fine hybrid system. After all of these years, the battery is a little bit weaker, and so you're not seeing quite the MPG that you would expect out of a vehicle like this, and that's only going to downgrade until you replace the battery, which can be very pricey. Now, like I said, paired to it is an eCVT. I think it works well in this application. It plays well with the hybrid system. It feels very natural with the hybrid system. It just never felt natural with a plain gas engine, but for cars that use gas and electric, I think this eCVT works great. Last but not least about the drivetrain, of course, the HS is front-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Lexus HS250h? Here's the thing. It rides fine. It's not a very Lexus ride. It doesn't feel like a Lexus product when you're behind the wheel. You don't have a whole lot of power, which historically before 2010, Lexuses usually had pretty good power. They had only ever used V6s and V8s. So you don't have a whole lot of power. The ride is a little stiff and jittery. Visibility is not great. You have these little corner windows over the front that I guess help, but kind of not really also. It's not a bad car experience like overall. Like in the grand scheme of every car ever made, like this would be in the upper 50% in terms of ride quality and things like that. It's just not what I would expect from the Lexus brand. I think a lot of people felt that way as well because these cars didn't sell great. So again, we'll talk about that with the final thoughts. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a mix of physical and digital gauges. So we do have our charge power and fuel gauge. We have the speedometer, but then we have a little icon here also showing us where the energy is going, whether it's from the engine, from the battery, from both to the wheels, things like that. On the steering wheel, on the left, we do have our volume mode and skip track, and off to the right, we have phone options, voice commands, and our page selector for that little gauge cluster screen that we just talked about. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, power mirrors, gauge dimmer switch, and traction control off. And moving on to the door, we have our memory seats, lock and unlock, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get our infotainment display. This does have navigation, so this does feel somewhat luxurious, but it does have a cool party piece. When you turn the vehicle on and off, it will close and open the middle display, adding a little bit of life to the interior, which I always think is somewhat fun. Now, this is pretty heavily outdated. It is a 16-year-old system, so I guess I'm happy to see it functioning at all rather than not. Then we have two climate control vents and our climate controls, as well as our drive modes off to the left for power mode, eco mode, and EV. We have our radio controls and shifter off to the left. All of this together is just kind of a lot to look at. All of it is very monotone. You really have to read the individual buttons to figure out what the heck that they do, which I'm sure is fine if you've owned this car for years and years and years, but someone who's just freshly stepping in, it took a lot more time than usual to figure out where everything was and what all of the buttons did. So this was kind of peak button before they started migrating everything into the center screens like we see in modern vehicles. Then we do have a tilt and open close button for the center display. It's interesting, you can't adjust the tilt up and down. You just keep hitting tilt until it readjusts itself. Kind of an interesting little touch there. And then we have a joystick that is terrible, horrible, no good, and very bad. It's annoying to use. I would argue it's dangerous to use while driving. It's not very precise. It's very aggravating. And when I get aggravated, I start to road rage. And when I road rage, I put other people's lives in danger. And when other people's lives are in danger, sometimes they die. And so it's easy to draw the conclusion that this joystick does, in fact, kill people. Ugh, it's like an awful office mouse from 2004. You'd get off the shelf at Tiger Direct because it was the cheapest option, or Micro Center, back when building PCs was cool and not $1 million. Anyway, I have strong feelings about this, but down below, we do have a 12-volt outlet. We have USB-A as well as aux inputs. We have heated and ventilated seats, and we have cup holders. We'll do a big freaking bottle test, and it fails. Wah, wah, wah. The seats are comfortable. This is a very Lexus experience because they are heated, ventilated, power, and memory, and they are comfy and cozy during my time with the vehicle. This has been a big thumbs up for the HS and sort of a return to form, at least in terms of Lexus. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, let's get into the back of the HS250h. I don't think this is going to be very good, but we're going to do it anyway. Oh, okay. It's not as terrible as I was assuming. Knees are not hitting the seat in front of me, but it's only because the seats have this big curve in it, and so you actually can fit your knees. If my knees were up higher, they would hit the seat. Headroom is fine as well. I do fit back here. My head is not hitting the ceiling if I sit up normally. It is a little bit more cramped than what I would be used to. It's not great, you know, it is pretty cramped back here, but I fit, which is a win. But again, when we're talking about Lexus, I always think of these big, grandiose back seats that are so comfortable and oftentimes better than the front seats. And I definitely don't get that here in the HS. It's fine, but it's nothing to brag about. So we do get a center console over my shoulder, openable cup holders in there as well. But again, nothing crazy. Let's hop into the back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. Right around the back of the Lexus HS250h, we do have a trunk release button here on the key fob. Pull it up like this, and it is a pretty standard trunk, pretty heavy trunk. That actually took quite a bit of muscle to get up. Once we are back here, there you go. That is it. You can see the hybrid battery kind of peeking through back there, but nothing too crazy. Lift up the floor, and we don't get anything besides a couple tools, but no spare tire here in the HS because they had to account for the space of the hybrid battery. So you don't get any spare tire or anything like that. A little bit of a downside, but there you go. That's the trunk of the HS250h. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I don't really like the look of the HS250h. However, I love seeing them because they are rare, because they are unique, and it's just something that we didn't see a whole lot of. I like that about this a lot. You know, anytime I saw one of these, I always think it's great. I also have a friend who runs the Cars of Glasgow YouTube channel. He is a huge fan of these, and so anytime I see one, I snap a picture and send it to him. Here's one I saw in the parking lot of a Don Quixote in Osaka, Japan, which we'll talk about here in a second. I don't think that they're very pretty. I think they're fine. I think it does the job. I think it's, you know, a car. And it's nice to see one in red. I always say I don't review a whole lot of Lexuses in red, so I guess that's nice to see. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think finally driving the Lexus HS250h? I have been wanting to review one of these for a very long time. I remember back in 2017, I was still working at Jiffy Lube, and we had one of these come in for an oil change, and I was kind of oogling over it because I wasn't really sure what the heck it was. I thought it was like a Canadian market vehicle, but no, they sold them here, just not very well. Here's the thing. I don't dislike the HS. It's not a very Lexus experience. The ride doesn't feel like a Lexus product. The drivetrain doesn't feel like a Lexus product. Sure, it has the heated seats and it has the navigation, and if you look at it, you would say, yeah, that's a pretty Lexus interior. It looks like a Lexus, but it's just not that experience. And having driven early 2000s Lexus products, this was a huge step down. And so that's why it didn't really sell all that well. I think they ended up selling around 15,000 of these in the United States. Now, they sold way better in Japan. Japan usually prefers smaller vehicles. They prefer more efficient vehicles. And Lexus was just starting to launch in their home market of Japan. They originally started with the US and then migrated back home to Japan in the late 2000s. But these actually sold way better in Japan to the point where they actually outlived them. Here in the United States, they lasted from 2009 to 2012. They ran all the way to 2017 overseas on the island. So they liked them a lot better. I think that's what came down to it and why they didn't sell all of these that well. You have to imagine and remember what this car was selling against in the showrooms. Big Lexus GXs with big V8s, the LS600 with its executive seat package. The IS could be had in convertible and with a manual. Those are all very Lexus-y products. And this just doesn't feel like one. It doesn't have the same essence. It doesn't have the same features. It doesn't make me feel the same way as a more traditional Lexus product does. And so I think that was actually somewhat of the downfall of this car. It just goes to show you can dress like one and talk like one, but at the end of the day, you have to be one. This car just doesn't feel like a Lexus. It's not awful. It's not bad. It's just not what I would come to expect from the brand. However, to me, I still think it's incredibly cool, and I was excited to share it with you here today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Napleton Subaru in Schaumburg for letting me borrow their HS for today's video and helping me check it off my bucket list. Napleton Subaru in Schaumburg is absolutely wonderful. They always have cool and interesting vehicles on their lot. If you want to buy a new Subaru, check them out. Or if you're in the market for a used vehicle, head on over to see my friends at Napleton Subaru in Schaumburg. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.